Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'm going to start it off in Obadiah chapter 1, verse 1, and the header reads, Edom will be humbled, and Edom, or the Edomites, Esau, Edom, are you so-called white people, and this whole chapter is dedicated to your judgment. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And World War III is also a part of biblical prophecy, and a lot of these nations, being led by Russia, are going to be fighting against the West, Western Europe, mainly the United States of America, and, America's puppet master, the state of Israel. And right now, you're seeing these nations rise up against you Edomites, in the West. Look at the BRICS. Verse 2, Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And, on the one hand, you Edomites are actually the global minority. And then on the other hand, it's talking about your reputation being made small, which, again, these nations are starting to turn against you Edomites in the West, especially in the United States of America. More and more, of these second and third world nations are calling you American Edomites out for the problem that you are. And, just you Edomites as a whole, because look at your history. It's been nothing of grape, robbery, and murder. And now we are coming to the end of your rulership. And a lot of you Edomites in the West, again, especially in America, are seeing it and starting to feel it. Which brings me to this video from Twins Hangout Kenya's YouTube channel titled White People Just Waking Up and Having a Meltdown Over This. And there's going to be a few clips that these two Hamite or so-called African women are going to be playing, showing that you Edomites are feeling the heat out here, and that this image you thought that the world had of America as being the world's, savior is just a false reality. A lot of these nations look at America as one of the most dangerous places on the face of the earth. Again, behold, I have made thee small amongst the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. I'm going to be jumping around in this video just to hit a few points, but I'm going to start at the top. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this video, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
America is not what it once was. I've got some bad news for people who don't travel internationally. The world hates us, okay? We're not the big dogs. We don't have the clout that we once had. We aren't even statistically on top of anything, education or anything anymore.
Let me tell you guys something with absolute certainty. The U.S. empire is crumbling from within. People act like the last empire that fell was 1,000 years ago. No, it wasn't. It was Soviet Union, just 33 years ago. And before that, it was the British Empire that fell some 60 years ago. The downfall of the U.S. is very near. And when the U.S. empire crumbles and falls, Israel is going to go with it. And they have played a crucial role in bringing down the U.S. So celebrate that.
Hi guys, welcome.
Hey, and those 1948ers are going to play a crucial role in getting you Americans drug into World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, over in the so-called Middle East, Western Asia. Read Joel chapter 3. And as it says in Jeremiah 49 verse 20, the least of the flock, speaking of those 1948ers, shall draw them out. And as that guy just said, America is crumbling internally, and the world is turning against you. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And what this is all going to end in is these nations shooting nuclear missiles onto the United States of America.
Back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren
And I'm Maureen.
Right. So in today's episode, we are going to be reacting on videos of palm-colored people who are having a meltdown on the internet. Why is this happening? Because they're only just waking up and realizing that what the black population have been complaining about for centuries and years is now coming to pass.
Right, when black people used to complain about this stuff, they were never taken serious. Instead, the palm population and other people of color would tell black people, why don't you work harder to give yourselves a better lives? Why don't you do this and that? Until this situation has finally hit them as a population.
It's
also
affecting them.
It's affecting them, and it's
everybody.
affecting everybody across all boards. Now they're coming out here to make noise, and yes, their noise is being heard.
Yeah.
But guys, what are we talking about? Let's watch this video and then we come back and talk about it. Please leave us a comment on what you think about this episode, and also consider subscribing if you are new to our channel. Let's watch.
So I think we can.
And what those two Hamite women are doing is just a microcosm of the macrocosm of these nations looking down on you Edomites and seeing that, hey, you're losing your power. You're not the big bad dog that you used to be. This is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to read verses 16 to 17. And this is mainly talking about in the kingdom of heaven, when you Edomites are in slavery, these other nations are going to look at you and be like, wow, this used to be the man that, used to rule the world. But look at him. He's in chains just like us. But we're also seeing the beginning stages of it right now with these nations looking down upon you, despising you, and seeing that, hey, you're not as strong or as bad as you thought you were. You're declining economically, morally, and militarily. And these other nations are, seeing that the way of life you pushed is really a death style and not a lifestyle. But this is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to read verses 16 to 17. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof? All these wars you fought, these atomic bombs and carpet bombings you've done on the places, making the kingdoms to tremble, to get in line, or else they face sanctions or military action against them, that open not the house of his prisoners. And those main prisoners are talking about the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who are the majority is in the United States of America, which is, a major prison house for the children of Israel. Literally, who are the main, prisoners in the prison industrial complex? You so-called Negroes, especially so-called Latinos and Native Americans. But, this is the first video I've seen from this channel, but, I was reading some of the titles of some of their other videos, and hey, these two Hamite women are narrowly looking upon these Edomites and pretty much being like, hey, is this the man that made the earth the wilderness, that made the world to tremble? What did they say? So-called black people, which is no such thing, have been saying, for the longest time that the situation has been bad, but nobody listened to them and told them, hey, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work harder. Well, hey, now it's your turn, Esau. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work harder. Fucking devil.
We can all agree at this point that the U.S. is in serious decline. I've talked about it from the standpoint of education. I've talked about
Living with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis often means spending hours at an infusion.
it from the standpoint of economy. You could talk about it from the standpoint of just about any way that we meet people's needs in this country. People are not getting their needs met. It's hard to say when this decline started. I think you could say that it even started in the 1970s, but I think it became apparent in 2016 when we democratically elected a right-wing demagogue. which is what countries in decline do. And I've been pretty clear since about last summer or so that my continuing to stay in this country is a choice to go through a very difficult time in history. And I also understand that the choice to stay is itself very privileged.
And I thought it was the UK that was on its arse. Seems like these Americans are really fucking struggling with the cost of living crisis. Check this video out. Tell me it don't break your heart. How can someone earning $80,000 a year be struggling to live?
Too.
This is fucked.
And we are literally the brokest we've ever been. Brokest we've ever been.
But I'm making the most money I ever had my entire life. My husband and I, between the two of us, gross, make like over $80,000 a year. And if you told me a few years ago that $80,000 a year was not going to be enough for a family of four.
I make more than what I made back in 2015. But I am still literally living paycheck to paycheck.
I have to work 60 hours a week and make $80,000 a year to make ends meet. That's insane. I can't even begin to wrap my head around it.
Financially, I don't understand anymore. I don't understand how I make $34 an hour and I can't function. I can't function. I can't pay my bills.
I don't know if y'all be reading and paying attention to the news, but the economy...
I'm going to skip around a bit, but again, hey, is this the man that made the earth as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof and that made the kingdoms to tremble? Yeah. Hey, welcome to the party, Esau. But I'm going to jump to the 5-minute and 2-second mark.
I've traveled a lot internationally. Over COVID, obviously, I stopped. And there's always been an underlying tone that America is dangerous. But, you know, we run Hollywood, so a lot of the media that is consumed by people in other countries is still American. However, I'm on my first international trip since COVID, and it has gotten worse. I have heard from every nationality that America is dangerous, but I arrived in Indonesia, which is a country that, you know, a lot of people aim to get out of and go to America. And the first thing that my taxi driver says to me is that he's afraid of America because of all the poppy seeds that we're taking and all the jazz powder that people are using. And he's convinced that people are walking around the U.S. like zombies because that's what's on the...
Hey, well, is he too far off with all that prescription MEDs people are on? You know, all these alcoholics and drug addicts out here. Unless we forget these people that took that 019 to 021 juice and then the double juices.
Internet, that's what these people are seeing. And I think it's a really big lesson if you are sheltered and are not leaving the U.S. We don't got it. Like, we don't got it anymore. People don't want to live in America. People aren't eager to live in America. When I was in Europe, a lot of the kids said their parents wouldn't let them go to America because they were afraid they were going to get popped by the police. Like, those are the fears. The only fear that Americans have when their children travel overseas is that they're going to be, like, in the movie Taken, which is a very small possibility. And they just use that as a fear. I don't even, like, that's not really even a founded fear. People aren't taking Americans when we go, because you know how big of a hell case they would raise if some little white girl went missing? That's not what's happening. But what is happening is other people from other nations are going to America and bad things are happening to them. So, just a reminder, we ain't shit. We ain't shit.
I left the U.S. 8 months ago, and something that shocked me is that nobody likes America except for Americans. And even a lot of Americans don't like America. When I learned that people have no interest in visiting the U.S., I was shocked because I thought, isn't the U.S. one of the best countries in the world? But I think that's what they teach us in the U.S. People think Americans are loud, disrespectful, unruly, obnoxious, pretentious.
And when they're talking about that, who do you think they're mainly talking about? You so-called white Americans, you Edomite Americans.
One of my European friends said, you know, I typically refuse to hang out with Americans, but you're all right. When Americans come to Japan, they're usually shocked that Japanese people don't speak a lot of English at all. and they'll say, why don't they speak English? But you're coming to someone else's country where they speak their language. Why don't you learn their language if you want to visit their country?
For some reason, we also have to measure everything differently. Feet, inches, miles, pounds, Fahrenheit. When everyone else in the world uses meters, kilos, and Celsius.
For those of you that don't
Hey, again, they shall narrowly look upon thee and say, is this the man that did shake kingdoms? But from those, two people speaking, what are they saying? Their experiences with foreigners is them just, shitting on America and saying, I don't want to go there. I don't want to get pew-pewed or, deal with any of that madness you obnoxious, ugly Americans deal with. This is Habakkuk chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 15 to 16. Woe unto them that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. And, this isn't talking about a 2022 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. That's talking about, philosophies and the different ideologies that America pushes, especially on our people, through the music industry, which is controlled by who, the top hatters. Hey, they push that thug and hip hop and whore culture on our people. They make them drunk off of black culture. And then what? They also break up the family structures, with these welfare programs to where the woman can't have the man in the house. So that leads to single parent households, which is destructive. So, they do all this to destroy our communities. And then what? They blame us for everything. Like that's just our natural estate, when it's you that's putting the drugs and the alcohol and the, means to destroy our communities in our communities. And, you demonize these other nations too. You make them the teists, the boogeymen, the dictators. They're doing human rights violations just so you can show them as the bad guy and justify yourselves going over there and overthrowing their sovereign leaders and setting up puppets so you can bring that democracy, which is just more rape, robbery, and murder. But it says, woe unto them that do these things, or destruction. Verse 16, thou art filled with shame for glory, because especially through this internet, all this information, all these different perspectives are flooding, the airwaves, allowing people to see just how diabolical you Edomites, especially in the West, are. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered, and your hidden secrets, your image as being the good guy and the world's police and the bringers of freedom and democracy being exposed as just a sham. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be upon thy glory. And as those two people were saying, everybody's got a low, disrespectful opinion of America. Shameful spewing is coming upon your former glory because you're being exposed for the devils and the cancer of the earth that you are.
don't understand how truly awful the US has become, I'm going to put it into perspective for you. I saw my aunt yesterday and she told me a story that absolutely blew my mind.
Living with opioid addiction can be a struggle. Trapped in a cycle of opioid use, withdrawal, and cravings. Supplicate.
And
they just had an ad for opioid addiction. And who is that mainly affecting? You Edomites. And one of those cups that you made people, especially our people, drunken off of was these drugs you flooded into our communities. Remember the crack era, that helped build up the prison industrial complex and, just destroy our communities. But now you're starting to drink of that cup. Now these opioids from these poppies, which came from where? A lot of them from Afghanistan, from that war you fought, are flooding back into the country and getting your people addicted and making you strung out here. Hey, what's that saying? Karma's a bitch. I should have known better.
Huh? And I guess I'm making this video partly as a caution and partly as a call to action. As a country declines, there is this pattern of insane concentration of wealth, and those who own the wealth start to engage in a lot of corruption in order to keep the wealth going. And where there once was order and maybe some facade that there was not that much corruption, that is all gone, and the people who are in the middle and the upper middle economically start to get swallowed up by the wealth inequality. And the typical reaction of people who are supposed to have privilege in the society is that they will fight very hard to maintain that position. And so my caution is to let you know that we are not at that place in history where we elect a different representative. We're at that part of history where we rewrite the way that government works, the way that education works, the way that economy works. It's a much bigger change. We're waiting and holding on while this current thing crumbles. We're not building anything. And for those of us who are more privileged, it is time for us to let go of our privilege and some belief that we are supposed to have more money than the people who are...
That's it with what she said, but she made a beautiful point. She said, we're not building anything. And if you're not building, you're destroying. And also we're not at the point of electing officials in, we're at the point of rewriting the government. And how does that usually happen? By the sword, by bloodshed, which there will be civil unrest in the United States of America because, just like these different nations are seeing America for its folly and hypocrisy, even these own Edomite Americans are seeing that their government threw them under the bus. And it's eventually going to get to the point to where pressure is going to bust those pipes. And, these Americans are going to start fighting each other, and especially fighting against you and the government. Which brings me to Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And this is talking about the spiritual Egyptians as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8. You Americans, especially you American Edomites. And I will set the Americans against the Americans, and they shall fight. Everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Now I'm going to close it out in 2nd Esdras chapter 15 in the Apocrypha. I'm going to read verses 15 to 16. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another. And that goes into one race of people standing up and fighting against another. As it says in Matthew 24, verse 7, nation shall rise against nation, class warfare, political warfare, with red versus blue, where they're not throwing words at each other anymore, but throwing lead. And also, the average everyday person going against those in the government, and swords in their hands. And that modern day sword in America is that kinetic device, as Full Spectrum Survival likes to say, that gun. Verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men. And the definition for sedition is conduct or speech inciting an open rebellion against a ruling authority or monarch. And what that Edomite woman just said was very seditious. We're not at the point of electing new officials. We're at the point of rewriting the entire system and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. And your modern day kings and princes are those in the government. Mayors, governors, senators, the president, which, with this last presidential election, you've got, one half of the country pitted against another half, and the authorities like the police or the military that uphold the system. And when it gets time to throw in lead, a business suit, a fancy speech or a uniform, is it going to stop these people from invading one another? And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Everybody's going to do what they got to do, get it how they live. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.